America built an extraordinary array of vacation destinations across the 20th century. Beach resorts, mountain retreats, lake communities, amusement parks, and boardwalk towns that drew millions of families every summer for decades. Some of them are still thriving. Others followed a different trajectory. The economy shifted. The highways bypassed them. The demographic changed. The water quality declined. Or the specific thing that made them special stopped being the thing that people wanted. These are the 15 places that were America's vacation capitals. Now, they're abandoned. Number 15, Dogpatch USA, Harrison, Arkansas. Dogpatch USA was a theme park in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas near Harrison, built around the characters of Al Capp's Lil Abner comic strip, which ran in newspapers from 1934 to 1977. The park opened in 1968, combining the scenic gorge landscape of Marble Falls and the comic strip characters of Dogpatch, Kentucky, the fictional hillbilly community that Capp's strip was set in. At its peak in the 1970s, the park drew several 100,000 visitors per year, trading on the national visibility of the Lil Abner Strip and the genuine natural beauty of the Arkansas Ozarks. The park's decline was tightly linked to the decline of the Lil Abner intellectual property. When Cap ended the comic strip in 1977, the cultural connection that the park's identity depended on began to fade. The generation for whom Daisy Mae and Mammy Yoakum and Hairless Joe were household names was aging. The generation coming up had no particular attachment to the characters. The park changed hands multiple times and struggled through the 1980s and into the 1990s with declining attendance and maintenance budgets that fell behind the property's needs. Dogpatch USA closed in 1993. The structures, the themed buildings, the flume ride, the log cabins, were left in place and decayed through the late 1990s and 2000s. The site was purchased multiple times by developers with various revival plans, none of which materialized. The nature area associated with the park, Marble Falls and the surrounding gorge, remains genuinely beautiful. The themed infrastructure on top of it has been in a state of abandonment and partial demolition for over 30 years. Number 14, Prehistoric Forest, Irish Hills, Michigan. The Irish Hills of Michigan was a tourist corridor along US 12 in Lenawee County that developed in the early 20th century into one of the more concentrated collections of roadside attractions in the Midwest. Prehistoric Forest was one of the marquee stops, an attraction built around life-sized fiberglass dinosaurs posed in a forested walking trail setting, offering families the specific experience of encountering scale-accurate representations of prehistoric creatures in a wooded environment. The fiberglass dinosaur trail format was enormously popular in the 1950s through 1970s. The combination of scale, many of the dinosaurs were 20 to 30 feet long and proportionally tall, realism for the era, and the simple pleasure of walking among them in a natural setting produced a consistent draw for family road trips. Prehistoric Forest at its peak was part of an Irish Hills itinerary that included Mystery Hill and other tourist stops that had accumulated along the US 12 corridor as Detroit area families made the 2-hour drive south to the lakes of southeastern Michigan. The specific collapse of Prehistoric Forest and most of the Irish Hills tourist corridor tracks the changes in American vacation geography that occurred from the 1970s onward. The interstate highway system bypassed US 12 in favor of EI 94, redirecting the family road trip traffic that had sustained the corridor. Air travel became accessible enough to allow families to vacation at greater distances. The specific combination of dinosaur attraction plus lake access that had made Irish Hills a regional destination stopped being competitive against Florida, national parks, and theme parks with significantly higher production value. Prehistoric Forest closed, and its fiberglass dinosaurs remained on the property for years, weathering in place, before partial cleanup and the arrival of new owners with various plans. Number 13, Fort Fun, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. The Great Smoky Mountains region of Tennessee has been a vacation destination since the establishment of Great Smoky Mountains National Park in 1934, and Gatlinburg, the tourist gateway town at the park's north entrance, has been in continuous development as a tourist economy since the 1940s. Fort Fun was one of the amusement attractions that the Gatlinburg corridor accumulated over the decades, a go-kart and mini-golf facility in the specific format that roadside tourist attractions along the mountain approaches produced throughout the post-war period. What makes Fort Fun specifically notable is not its own history, but what it represents. The churning turnover of secondary attractions in a heavily visited tourist corridor where the primary draw, the national park, is permanent and free, and the surrounding commercial infrastructure of secondary paid attractions exists in an intensely competitive environment. Properties that cannot maintain sufficient differentiation, sufficient capital investment, and sufficient marketing presence in a corridor where the competition includes Dollywood, whitewater rafting operations, and a dense collection of other attractions either find a sustainable niche or fade. Fort Fun is in the latter category, an attraction that became uncompetitive in a corridor that has consistently upgraded around it. The specific visual that the Gatlinburg corridor presents, go-kart tracks overgrown, mini golf courses with collapsed obstacles, storefronts dark in a town where the operating properties are brightly lit and active, is a specific quality of tourism corridor abandonment where the successful and the abandoned exist simultaneously on the same street. Number 12, Santa's Land, Cherokee, North Carolina. Santa's Land was a theme park in Cherokee, North Carolina, at the entrance to Great Smoky Mountains National Park on the North Carolina side, that operated from 1966 to 2006. The park was a Christmas-themed family attraction offering visits with Santa Claus, themed rides, animal exhibits, and the specific combination of holiday theming and natural mountain setting that had some appeal in a region where visitors were already present for the national park. The park ran for 40 years before closing. The timing of its closure in 2006 reflected the specific competitive pressure that the expansion of the Harrah's Cherokee Casino, operated by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians on the adjacent Cherokee Nation Reservation, which opened in 1997 and expanded significantly through the 2000s, placed on other tourist attractions in the immediate area, a casino with entertainment, dining, and gaming on the scale that Harrah's Cherokee had grown to represent a fundamentally different category of tourist draw than a Christmas-themed family park, drawing a different demographic and a significantly larger per-visitor spending commitment. The competitive environment around Cherokee changed substantially when the casino arrived, and Santa's Land's 40-year presence was not sufficient insulation against that change. The park's structures remained after the 2006 closure, the placard de cases visible from the highway, in the specific state of a theme park that closed too recently for complete structural decay, but too long ago for the infrastructure to be maintained in usable condition. Number 11, Rainbow Springs, Dunalon, Florida. Rainbow Springs State Park in Florida's Marion County is today a well-maintained state park with camping, swimming, and kayaking on the Rainbow River, one of Florida's 9 federally designated outstanding Florida waters, with visibility of up to 100 feet through water that maintains a constant 68.5 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, regardless of ambient temperature. What most visitors to the park do not know is that the site operated as one of Florida's most successful commercial tourist attractions from 1937 until 1974, featuring underwater observation areas, glass-bottom boat tours, trained animal shows, and a collection of themed gardens and installations that drew millions of visitors during the mid-century peak of Florida road trip tourism. The attractions model was specifically built around the road trip era, families driving south on US 41. The primary pre-interstate route through Central Florida would stop at Rainbow Springs as part of a multi-day Florida itinerary that might include Silver Springs, famous for its glass-bottom boats, Weeki Wachi's Mermaid Show, and other natural spring attractions distributed along the Florida interior. The distribution of Florida's tourist attractions along the pre-interstate highway routes made stops like Rainbow Springs viable because the traffic came to them rather than bypassing them. Two forces ended this in relatively quick succession. Interstate 75 was completed through the Florida interior in stages through the 1960s and early 1970s, moving the primary north-south tourist traffic from US 41 to the new interstate, which bypassed Dunalun entirely. And Walt Disney World opened in October 1971, changing the entire structure of Florida tourism in a way that no prior attraction had. Disney World concentrated tourist attention and spending in Central Florida at a scale that made the distributed Springs attraction model that had worked for decades suddenly and dramatically less viable. Rainbow Springs closed in 1974. The state of Florida purchased the property in 1990 and converted it to a state park, preserving the spring and the river, while the commercial attraction's infrastructure was absorbed into or removed from the park landscape. The natural resource that the attraction was built on remains spectacular. The tourist economy that surrounded it for 37 years is gone. Number 10. Rockaway Beach, New York. Rockaway Beach, specifically the commercial and amusement infrastructure that once made the Rockaway Peninsula in Queens, New York, one of the most popular urban beach destinations in the United States, is a partially recovered story rather than a purely abandoned one. But the trajectory from peak to decline is complete and documented, and the mid-century infrastructure is gone in a way that is permanent. In the early to mid-20th century, the Rockaway beachfront was the working-class and middle-class alternative to the Hamptons, accessible by the A train and the Long Island Railroad, affordable to the families of Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx who could not make it to the South Fork but needed a beach for a summer Sunday. At peak weekend attendance, the beach drew hundreds of thousands of visitors in a single day. The commercial infrastructure that developed to serve that volume included hotels, restaurants, bathhouses, and playland at Rockaway Beach, an amusement park that operated from 1901 to 1987 and was one of the largest urban seaside amusement parks in the Northeast. Robert Moses's role in Rockaway's decline is specific and documented. Moses, as Parks Commissioner and as Coordinator of Construction for New York, directed investment and infrastructure toward Jones Beach on Long Island rather than toward Rockaway, a decision that partly reflected the demographics of each location. As Jones Beach was designed to be more accessible to white middle-class New Yorkers, while Rockaway served a more diverse urban population. The highways that Moses built served Jones Beach access efficiently. The Rockaway connection was less prioritized. Jones Beach got the money and the facilities. Rockaway got the declining infrastructure. Hurricane Sandy in October 2012 caused catastrophic physical damage to the Rockaway Peninsula. The boardwalk was destroyed. Hundreds of homes were flooded, and the commercial strip suffered severe damage. The reconstruction has been extensive, and Rockaway has experienced a genuine revival among younger New Yorkers and visitors who discovered the peninsula's beach community character during the COVID-19 pandemic period. But the Playland amusement park, the large hotels, the mid-century scale of the beachfront commercial economy, those are not coming back. Number 9. Mystery Hill. Various, United States. Mystery Hill is actually multiple separate attractions at different locations. There are documented Mystery Hill or Mystery Spot installations in states including North Carolina, New Hampshire, and several other locations, all operating on the same basic premise: a building constructed on a hillside with visual and physical illusions that make water appear to run uphill and people appear to lean at impossible angles. The specific visual trick is accomplished through careful construction that creates a false horizon, making the tilted interior appear to be vertical. These attractions were enormously popular in the mid-20th century roadside era. The experience of spatial disorientation and the wonder of apparent physics violation that Mystery Hills provided was genuinely affecting to visitors encountering it for the first time. and the phenomenon was sufficiently unusual that word of mouth drew consistent traffic. The Mystery Spot in Santa Cruz, California, which opened in 1940 and remains open, is the model for the genre. The specific locations that have closed and been abandoned represent the portion of the mystery attraction genre that existed in tourist corridors that did not sustain sufficient traffic to maintain operation. Their physical infrastructure, the tilted house, the surrounding woods, the parking area and gift shop, remains on many of these sites in various states of decay, visited occasionally by urban explorers who document the specific visual of a building that was intentionally disorienting, now additionally disorienting because of the decay. Number 8. Clark's Trading Post, Lincoln, New Hampshire. Clark's Trading Post in Lincoln, New Hampshire opened in 1928 and has been continuously operated by the Clark family, making it one of the oldest continuously operated tourist attractions in New England. It is notably not abandoned. It is still open. The reason it appears on this list is the degree to which the attractions that surrounded it in the White Mountains tourist corridor of central New Hampshire have closed and left Clark's as one of the last operating examples of a mid-20th century family roadside attraction in a region that once had dozens. The White Mountains of New Hampshire were a premier American vacation destination from the late 19th century through the mid-20th century. The grand hotels of Crawford Notch, the Notch Road attractions, the aerial tramways, and the density of tourist infrastructure that period built has been progressively closing as the economics of that specific format became unworkable. Clark's Trading Post, with its performing bear shows, steam-powered train ride, and vintage carnival atmosphere, has survived where others have not, partly through family ownership, partly through continuous reinvestment, and partly through the specific quality of a place that has been there long enough to be a tradition rather than just an attraction. The abandoned infrastructure of White Mountain tourism that surrounds Clark's continuation, the former grand hotels, the closed attraction sites, is the context that makes Clark's survival the more remarkable and its counterpart's absence the more visible. Number 7. Ye Old Mill, Sylvan Beach, New York. Sylvan Beach on Oneida Lake in central New York was a popular resort community and amusement destination from the late 19th century through the mid-20th century, anchored by a lakeshore amusement park that drew summer visitors from Syracuse, Utica, and the surrounding communities. Ye Old Mill was a dark ride attraction at the Sylvan Beach Amusement Park, a boat ride through a darkened indoor channel with themed scenes and effects that operated for decades as one of the park's signature attractions. The Sylvan Beach Amusement Park and the resort community around it represent the specific category of small-scale regional amusement destinations that declined as the scale requirements of modern theme park competition exceeded what local ownership and local investment could sustain. The attractions that remained affordable in the 1950s, the dark ride, the wooden roller coaster, the Midway, became inadequate in a market where visitors' expectations had been set by the production value of national theme parks. Sylvan Beach has retained a modest summer community character, but the amusement park infrastructure has contracted significantly from its mid-century scale. Number 6. Ponce de Leon Springs, Defuniak Springs, Florida. Ponce de Leon Springs in Holmes County in Florida's Panhandle is a Florida state park today, but the site operated as a private commercial attraction for decades, drawing visitors to its natural spring and swimming area as part of the Gulf Coast road trip circuit that developed along US 90 in the pre-interstate era. The spring itself, producing approximately 14 million gallons of clear, 68-degree water per day, is a genuine natural feature. The commercial attraction built around it was part of the specific Florida roadside tourism economy that existed before the interstate highway system reorganized the geography of how people traveled through the state. US 90 through the Florida Panhandle was a primary route from Alabama and Mississippi into Florida before I-10 was completed. When the traffic moved to I-10, the US 90 corridor communities and attractions lost the foot traffic that sustained them. The state park acquisition, Florida has been more aggressive than most states in converting former private attractions at natural springs into public parks, preserved the spring, and provides public access. The commercial attraction's specific infrastructure is gone, absorbed into the state park's more naturalistic presentation. Number 5. Circus World Museum, Baraboo, Wisconsin. Baraboo, Wisconsin is the hometown of the Ringling Brothers Circus. The Ringling family lived in Baraboo, and the Ringling Brothers Circus wintered there from 1884 to 1918, leaving a concentration of circus-era buildings and equipment in the city that became the basis for the Circus World Museum, which opened in 1959. At its peak, the museum was one of the most significant collections of circus artifacts, historic wagons, and related material culture in the United States, and it drew visitors from across the Midwest for whom the circus was a living memory or a family tradition. The museum has had a troubled institutional history. It has changed management multiple times, has faced serious questions about its long-term sustainability, and has operated at varying levels of activity. The physical collection, the collection of historic circus wagons is genuinely significant and recognized as such by material culture and museum professionals, has been in varying states of preservation depending on the institutional phase. The surrounding Baraboo community has retained its identity as the circus hometown, with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Mansion Al Ringling, built in 1905, remaining as a landmark. The tension between the significance of the collection and the difficulty of sustaining a circus history museum in a smaller Wisconsin city on a consistent basis is the specific story of Circus World, an institution whose subject matter has receded in lived cultural relevance as the circus, as a popular entertainment form, declined, making the museum's audience increasingly a heritage interest rather than a current cultural connection. Number 4. Frontier Town, North Hudson, New York. Frontier Town was a Western-themed attraction in the Adirondacks of northern New York State, in North Hudson near Exit 29 of the Northway, I-87, that opened in 1952 and operated for 46 years, closing in 1998. The park was built by Arthur Benson, a former Disney artist and designer, and offered a complete Western town set with stagecoach rides, gold panning, staged gunfights, and other Western frontier experiences at a time when Western entertainment was among the most popular genres in American film and television. The specific demographic that Frontier Town served, families with children who had grown up on television Westerns and who made summer road trips to the Adirondacks, was real and large in the 1950s through 1970s. The Western genre dominated American popular culture for 2 decades, and an immersive Western experience at a genuinely beautiful Adirondack location was a legitimate vacation destination. As the Western genre faded from cultural dominance in the 1970s and 1980s, and as the Adirondacks became more competitive as a recreational destination with the growth of Lake Placid, Frontier Town's Western theme lost its cultural resonance, with the visiting demographic. The park closed in 1998. The property was subsequently developed as a campground, with the original Western town infrastructure demolished and replaced. The site's Adirondack location, the actual natural setting, is still there and still serves campers. The frontier town that Benson built is gone. Number 3. Land of Oz, Beech Mountain, North Carolina. Land of Oz was a theme park on Beech Mountain in the North Carolina Blue Ridge, opened on June 15, 1970, built around the world of the 1939 MGM film The Wizard of Oz. The park featured an Oz-themed walking journey with costumed characters and elaborate set pieces constructed at 5,506 feet elevation on Beech Mountain, at the time the highest elevation ski resort in the eastern United States, as a summer complement to the ski resort's winter season. The park had a difficult operational history from its opening. A fire in 1975 destroyed the Emerald City section, and reconstruction was only partial. The park closed in 1980, a decade after opening, as the combination of the fire damage, the operational challenges of running an attraction at elevation with a limited seasonal window, and the substantial maintenance cost of the themed infrastructure relative to the revenue it generated, made continued operation financially untenable. The property has had a specific and enduring second life. The Oz Festival, called Autumn at Oz, or Ozfest, has been held periodically at the site since 1993, bringing back original cast members from the film and attracting fans of both the park and the original MGM film. The festival draws visitors specifically for the experience of a partially preserved theme park in a state of intentional, event-activated preservation, rather than pure abandonment. It is one of the more specific forms of attraction afterlife available. Number 2, Enchanted Forest, Turner, Oregon. Enchanted Forest is a theme park in Turner, Oregon, south of Salem, that opened in 1971 after construction by Roger Toft, who began building the park largely by hand in 1964 with no professional construction experience. Tofty, who had small children and wanted to build them a fairy tale experience, spent 7 years hand-carving, constructing, and painting the Storybook Village, English Village, and themed environments that make up the park before opening it to the public. The specific character of Enchanted Forest is the result of individual craftsmanship applied consistently over decades, rather than corporate design and mass production. The structures retain the handmade quality that sets them apart visually and experientially from corporate theme parks. The park has remained family-owned and family-operated since its opening, adding attractions over the years, including a haunted house and a Western town component. Enchanted Forest is notably not fully abandoned. It continues to operate, though with periods of reduced hours and uncertainty about its long-term future. What has abandoned it, in the specific sense, is the era of American tourism that valued exactly what it offers: a hand-built, small-scale, intimate fairy tale environment without the scale or production value of a major theme park. The families that specifically sought out Enchanted Forest in 1975 and 1985 were making a specific choice. The families that visit today are often doing so on the basis of nostalgia or a specific aesthetic preference, rather than because it represents the available standard. The park persists, but the tourist economy that made it central has moved on. Number 1, Pacific Ocean Park. Santa Monica, California. Pacific Ocean Park, known as POP, was an amusement park built on a pier and platform over the Pacific Ocean in Santa Monica and Venice, California, that opened in August 1958, was operated by CBS, and represented one of the most ambitious attempts in American amusement park history to create a marine-themed attraction. The park was conceived as a competitor to Disneyland, which had opened in 1955 and was built with the CBS television network's resources at an investment of approximately $10 million. POP was genuinely innovative. Its design incorporated futurist and space-age imagery reflecting the cultural moment of 1958. The space age had begun with Sputnik in October 1957. Its location over the actual Pacific Ocean was unlike any other attraction in the country, and its scale, covering several city blocks of ocean surface on a platform structure, was extraordinary. The park drew millions of visitors in its early years. The operational difficulties were severe and ultimately unresolvable. Building an amusement park over the ocean means building it in the most corrosive environment available. Salt air, humidity, constant wave action, and direct marine weather exposure accelerate deterioration at rates that landlocked parks do not experience. Maintenance costs were extraordinary. The surrounding neighborhood of Ocean Park in Santa Monica was in demographic transition in the 1960s, and the foot traffic profile of the surrounding community shifted in ways that were unfavorable to the park's economics. POP closed in October 1967. The pier and platform structure was left in place as maintenance costs made demolition deferral economically rational. The abandoned structure became a known counterculture gathering site in the late 1960s, and the structural deterioration combined with the liability that represented eventually forced demolition, which proceeded through 1974. The pilings that supported the structure remained visible from the beach for years. As historian and Los Angeles cultural critic Nathan Masters described the park, Pacific Ocean Park was everything that California in 1958 thought the future should look like. A space-age playground over the actual ocean, built by a television network. The fact that the ocean eventually destroyed it is either deeply poetic or deeply obvious, depending on how you feel about salt water and corporate optimism. 15 places, a dinosaur park in an Arkansas gorge, a Christmas theme park in the shadow of a casino. The pattern in most of these is not catastrophic failure, but specific obsolescence. The thing that made a place special stopped being the thing people wanted at the scale required to sustain it. Hit that like button and subscribe. More content like this coming.